What is going on, you guys? So today I have another quick episode for you. We're going to review an episode from Chris Williamson's podcast, Modern Wisdom, and his guest today is Jordan Peterson. The episode is called Comfort Will Kill Your Soul. So let's hop into the video here.
Talking about the individual, one of the things that I see holding people back is comfort. So it's easy to get life to a stage where it's not that bad, but it's not that good either. At least when you have a full-on breakdown, there's only one way to go, right? You're only going to go up from there. But I think it's possible to wallow for years in a just about passable life, right? Sedated by comfort. And I see this temptation in myself as well, to give up the good for the great. What would you say to people who are trying to escape this curse of mediocrity?
Well, if you're satisfied with it in some fundamental sense, I mean, there's something to be said, I suppose, for walling off a private space for yourself if you can maintain it, and detaching yourself to some degree from the troubles of the world and maintaining your own little private garden. The problem with that is the snakes tend to seep in from the outside, right? It's pretty difficult to wall yourself off in any real sense from the concerns of the world. So it isn't clear to me that that's a viable solution. It also means that you might justify to yourself lack of civic engagement. You know, I shouldn't go to church. I shouldn't take part in the political process because it's all so corrupt. I should hide myself from all the annoying noise that's generated constantly on the media front. And I have some sympathy for that viewpoint, but I don't believe it's really possible because you can't have a walled garden independently of the health of the broader society. It's just not possible. Maybe you can have it for a very short period of time, but if you're comfortable with what you have and it's genuine comfort, then I think okay. But generally, it's not.
I think for the most part, it's people that have become sedated. You know, they've forgotten their dreams, but they've forgotten that they've forgotten them. Pink Floyd's "Comfortably Numb" is about this, right? They've become comfortably numb. I think most people. So I have this friend, and this story really hit me. So during the pandemic, running a podcast, I was able to have the thing that I feel I'm good at, my artistic pursuit and outlet, that was available for me to continue. It was actually increased because I didn't have other stuff to do. And I have a friend that's a barber, and he got a job at a supermarket. Barbers shut down for a long period of time, and he got a job at a supermarket stacking shelves overnight. And I asked him, I was like, man, how are you finding the new job? It's a big change. He's like, do you know what it is? I actually don't mind the work. I don't mind the people that I work with. But man, I miss being good at something.
Right. Well,
dude, that hit me so hard.
Right.
I missed being good at something.
Yeah. Well, people need the opportunity to be good at something. So then you might ask yourself, well, what's the best antidote to the discomfort of life? And you might say, well, it's comfort. And I suppose that's what you act out when you swaddle a baby. But a better antidote is something like adventure to excellence. And that's far better antidote to suffering than the mere absence of suffering. So not to say that the mere absence of suffering, that's not nothing, you know.
Stepping out of that sedation from comfort's difficult, though, especially if you've become routinized to it.
Yeah, well, that's the difficulty of maturity. You know, the Freudians said very wisely that the good mother necessarily fails.
What's that mean?
It means she stops providing the comfort that insulates people against the need for adventure.
I heard you say recently that a mother's ability to let her child go out into the world, knowing that they're still vulnerable and that it's now down to them and the world to look after them, that's one of the bravest things that they can do.
It's the female crucifixion.
So,
and that's exemplified best in, well, the best portrayal of that I've seen is Michelangelo's Pieta. You know, it's a statue of Mary, and she has Christ's body on her as an adult on her lap, and he's broken and destroyed, and you know she's displaying that. And that's.
Yeah, I was watching a video the other day where a guy was talking about when people have entitlement, right? And it's kind of interesting because it actually falls into a little bit of what they're talking about with like mothers. So of course, you know, like being a mother is like a really hard job, right? And you know, we all have a lot of love and respect for mothers. Now, the interesting part about what they're saying, right, is there's certain guys or people that have reached having like a level of entitlement, and it actually had stemmed from their mom kind of like protecting them or swaddling them too much. So like when they go out into the world, you know, it was all this like, oh, it's okay, blah, 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 blah. It's like, you're fine, baby, this and that, right? And like, so when they have to work hard for something, they're wondering why it's not coming to them. Like they don't understand, unless the mother instilled it in them with, you know, maybe the dad, right? But unless it was instilled in them, then there's certain people that come out and they think like they don't have to work hard for something. They kind of want something for nothing, right? They're just not like a value exchange. And not to say you always need to be like trading value, right? Like some people just want to help you, but like a lot of people expect something for nothing. That's like where the trouble comes in, is when they have an expectation. Like they expect, oh, I'm going to get this, right? Because it's been easy for them up until that point, until they have to put work in for that career, for that relationship, and they're wondering why things aren't working out. So they're getting upset about it because they were too protected before.
That's the bravery of a mother to allow that to happen. But not only that, to facilitate it. Facilitate it.
So what about
Way
from
you
the-
go, kid. Way you go. Way you go. Well, why? It's dangerous out there. It's like, yeah, no kidding. It's more dangerous here if you stay with me. By a lot. So you might lose your body out there in the world, but if you stay here, you lose your soul.
How do you see that as an individual? Let's say that there isn't the mother there that's pushing you along.
Well, you know, one of the things Carl Jung, was very interested in the Oedipal complex, and that's basically the overprotective maternal. And he criticized Freud for presuming that it was really something the mother did. He said it's more relational than that. First of all, it would be something the father would allow to happen, assuming there was a father around. So let's not forget about the paternal contribution to allowing that to occur. Because in some sense, it's the father's role to serve as the antithesis of that maternal overprotection. So a woman is extremely bonded with her infant, say between 0 and 9 months, and the infant is utterly helpless. And so complete compassion and the provision of comfort is the only job that matters. And that's really the case. And then the woman has to switch gears to some degree. The mother has to switch gears as the child starts to become more mobile, fundamentally, and more independent. She has to let go of the infant, which is a real grieving process. And she has to start to facilitate this movement towards independence. But that's a hard shift. And so partly the role of the father in that is to be an advocate for the child's independence and to comfort the mother, to let her know that that degree of security provision is no longer necessary, but also to act as an advocate for the child's outgoing desire. And so it's the Oedipal situation is not only the mother, it's also, say, the weak father, but then it's also the child. So you can imagine, because Jung believed that these negotiated agreements were relational. So, you know, you're 6, you're in grade 1, maybe you're feeling a little ill, maybe you're not, maybe you're playing with being a little ill, and maybe you're playing with exaggerating how ill you are, and your mom comes downstairs and says, you know, you've got a test today at school, maybe you haven't quite prepared for it, maybe you know you should have, and she says, but you know, you seem to have a tummy ache, maybe you're too sick to go to school. And the kid thinks, maybe I could just stay home and, you know, mom could tuck me in and I wouldn't have to take that test and I wouldn't have to confront the world. And he says, yeah, mom, my stomach really hurts. And away we go. And the child has made a choice. And you think, well, that's a catastrophic choice. And you think, well, children shouldn't be held accountable for choices they make at that age. It's like,
That child's soon going to be an adult that's going to make very similar decisions.
That's pretty nuts what he just said. Like, the child is going to be an adult to make similar decisions. Like, basically, if they keep encouraging that, they'll start making similar decisions as an adult with a lack of accountability for those situations. So, like, man, that's huge. And then the other thing that they were saying, you know, that's, you might have noticed this, or you will notice it, that it's really difficult when you know a mom who she's watching her, especially her son, right? Or her kids, like, they get to the point where they're out fending for themselves, like, because that's one role that she was playing among other things, and she's basically retiring from that role. I mean, she's still your mom, of course, right? So, like, she still loves you, she's still there for you in the same way. You know, you visit each other, she'll do similar stuff, you know, like want to make you food, help take care of you, all that good stuff. And eventually you'll be taking care of her too, you know. But it's quite interesting because you can see, Peterson mentioned grieving, right? Like, they're grieving that extra level of intensity, you could say, of the role that they were playing before as your mom, right? Like, because they were doing so much more to take care of you and protect you and all this stuff. And at a certain point, when you had to go out and fend for yourself, right? It gives them a bit of anxiety. And like you said, like, you know, sometimes the dad is there to comfort them, sometimes not. But like, it's a really difficult. It's interesting that he used the word or the phrase grieving process, because it's I've seen it, right? Like, it's challenging for them. They're like I was doing this thing for so long, and now I'm having like a bit of like a identity shift, right? Like, of course I'm still your mom, but like now these other things are happening, and I'm becoming another person again.
Choice has consequences, and to be held accountable for that is to recognize purely that the choice has consequences and that it is a choice. Now, you could say, well, 95% of the blame is to be put on the mother, and maybe that's an overestimate. I think it probably is. But the child could say, Mom, you don't have to worry about me. I'm going to get up and go do this. And that's choice. And that's the right choice. So these are always chicken and egg problems, obviously, but that fleshes out the complexity of the situation. If you're being enticed down a pathological road, you can accept or reject the invitation. Now, some people are better at enticing, and some people enforce it more harshly. And, there's all sorts of individual variability in situations like this. But just because you're offered the bait doesn't necessarily mean that you have to take it. So, and I'm not a determinist. I do believe that people have free will, whatever that means. That's a murky subject, and it gets complicated the more you look at it. But whatever, it's still a good shorthand way of describing the fact that we seem to be cursed with responsibility for our own destiny, at least to some degree.
What's happening, people? If you enjoyed that, then press.
Obviously a very interesting episode. I mean, like Chris Williamson and his guests, like, they often dive a bit deeper into topics, like sort of like everyday topics like that, right? I mean, they have a very interesting like discourse around it. So, hopefully this is helpful for you in some way. I mean, even if it just helps you kind of get out of your comfort zone, right? Because he mentioned that example earlier on about like his friend who was had this artistic expression. Like, I mean, Chris like had the podcast, and then his friend, like, he had he's a barber, right? And then he had to do another job because of the shutdown, right? And basically, he was like, I miss being good at something, right? And sometimes like comfort will take you away from the thing that you're good at, right? Or comfort will basically keep you from making an attempt to level up or progress, which is kind of a wild concept, right? Like in the back of your head, like in the depths of your soul, that you want to become better, grow, be the best version of yourself possible, level up, start a family, have some sort of business, or help people, right? And imagine getting to a situation where you start sleepwalking through your life for a while, right? Because like that guy, for example, like he could stop cutting hair forever and just stock shelves at the grocery store because of that situation, or he could get back to cutting hair and start leveling up the business, or like maybe teaching guys how to do it online, right? I mean, there's a lot of people who can flip those situations from being numb instead of being sedated through their whole life. Because there's another guy called First Man who talks about this. Like, it's like stick or twist. And stick means that you stay in the situation you're at, like you reach a level of comfort. Like, you've got the 9 to 5, you're making enough money, right? And you've got the relationship, the consistent intimacy, etc. Until you become comfortable and you know that you're capable of more. So you stop on, let's say, like that step of the ladder when you know that there's a lot more that you wanted to accomplish, and you sort of sedate yourself into that state of being rather than challenging yourself and knowing, wait, I can keep going and I need to hold myself accountable to this, right? So it's kind of like it's a very interesting concept on the comfort zone, because there's like ways that people consistently talk about it, and then there's conversations like this one. So anyways, I hope this was helpful for you in some way and get you thinking a little bit. Maybe you'll be able to apply it in your own life somehow. And thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. You got this, bro.